Hello, everyone. This is WGM Sabina Foisor. Very excited to bring you back another round of the 125th edition of the US Open and Invitationals. Mostly, I've been focusing on the Invitationals, so that will be my main area of focus. However, if you find any interesting game that's taking place in the Open, please don't hesitate to let me know, and I'll be sure to check it out so that we can discuss it together. We have passed the half of the competition yesterday with the third round having taken place, and now we're entering into the second half. The players have already started their fourth round, and I'm predicting another thrilling day of competition. And I certainly hope you'll be sticking around to find out how the games unfold. I want to say a special thank you to Precision Tune Auto Care, who are celebrating over 45 years in business, and they're sponsoring the stream for the entire duration of the US Open. So that's quite exciting. Aside from helping us keeping our cars safe on the road, we are also having a smooth transition, hopefully, here on stream. The tournament, the US Open, is taking place in Wisconsin. I am bringing you the action live from my own home, and occasionally you might be able to see my cat Regina, which is going to come cheer the players up for hopefully making good moves. But yesterday, like I said, we had a thrilling competition, so without further ado, I think it's time for me to take you through some of my favorite moments from yesterday's round 3 before we get into the action with today's round. We can also wait, of course, for a few more moves that way, so we don't feel like we're just looking at 2-3 moves. All right, so my favorite moments. Let's get started with the Irwin tournament of senior players. So on board 1, we had International Master Stuart Rachels playing against International Master Timothy Taylor. And in this specific position, I felt White was doing quite well. They're up a pawn and they just captured this pawn in h5. And all they had to do, in my opinion, is bring the final piece into the game. My suggestion was this move, Rook A to D1. Having brought the final piece into the game, it helps White just kind of just trade a bit of pieces and delay black or take black away from potentially having attacking ideas on the king side. In the game, instead, White ended up playing this move Bishop F3, which allowed black some activity, and International Master Timothy Taylor immediately played the move Rook D3, which starts threatening things on the third rank. King F1 was played, and now Queen H4. White did play the move Queen C4, but here Black was ready for a sacrifice. Rook takes F3, and he is definitely ready for it. Pawn takes, and now Queen takes H3. King E2, and in my opinion, one of the best moves, maybe even before Queen takes H3, this move Rook G5 would have brought Black definitely the equality, because we're bringing the Rook ready to capture E5, making sure that pawn is going to be captured under good circumstance. White king isn't going to escape that easily, and that pawn would be captured. In the game, Queen takes H3 was played first, and then Queen F5, which gave White a bit of chances to potentially try to play for a win. I think Rook G5 once again would have been the way for Black to go in order to be able to get that pawn first and then look into F3. The game continued like this, and in such positions, whenever someone is up on exchange, we want to have under consideration the idea that activity is very important for the Rook. That's the only way the Rook will really show its superiority towards the minor piece, whether it is a knight or a bishop. So trading a pair of Rooks is good. However, the continuation now, because there's so many pawns on the board, I think White has to be super precise. Looking back here with the engine a bit as well, it seems that black can create some kind of fortress by pushing the queenside pawns. So in order to stop everything, b4 followed by maybe a4, a5 would have given white some chances here in the position, though still is very difficult to really predict. I mean, we see this bar here showing that white has decisive advantage when you see +2 or more. We expect that that side supposedly should be winning, but it's still far from winning because black doesn't have really weaknesses that we can really take advantage of. But by doing that, it would have helped stop black from pushing the pawns. White ended up playing the move rook to g8, and then as the game progressed, eventually more pieces got traded and the players ended up getting a draw. The next game that was quite interesting to me was this one of Grandmaster Alexander Fishbein. Once again, has recently been crowned the US Senior Champion last week in St. Louis. And I was a bit surprised by his choice in this specific position. He's definitely having a very comfortable position, much better placed pieces, and ready for the attack on the king side. So I was definitely surprised to see his choice here, bishop d3, instead of what I thought was more natural, bishop h5 with tempo, chasing the rook away, followed by bishop g6. I think it would have given him definitely much easier chances to outplay his opponent. Even bishop d3 maintains some advantage, but it just felt a bit uncomfortable for the bishop for a while. But he's planned to follow up the attack later, developing the bishop first, bringing in both of his rooks on the 4th rank, certainly have made this beautiful game. And if you haven't followed the tournament just yet, be sure to check it out and see it for yourself. It was definitely one to watch for. Going on to another game that I kind of enjoyed was this game that was played in the Denker Tournament of Champions, and this was board 1 between FIDE Master Vishnu Vanapali and International Master Evan Park. This was a game that could have changed the standings quite a bit, but stay tuned to see what exactly happened. So the players follow through this relatively known line of the 4 knights Scotch variation: takes, bishop c5, bishop e3. Bishop c5 is not the most popular, by the way, for black. Usually people go for bishop b4 here, trying to put pressure on e4 indirectly, but Evan chose to go for the move bishop c5, and the next few moves were quite natural. Both players follow through with their development, and it was in this particular moment, after the move bishop g5, f6, bishop to c4, that black decided to move the king to h8, which proved to be a big mistake that could have cost him the game. Instead of this, actually, I believe knight takes would have been the correct choice, and after the capture in the center, bishop e6, black gets to have a relatively solid position here. The king is safe, and maybe the players would end up drawing in the end. But after king h8, white gets the chance to really take the initiative and utilize the fact that black has not yet developed those pieces. So here, knight takes e6, pawn takes, knight takes d5, and after pawn takes g5, knight takes b6. This sequence was perfectly played by FIDE Master Vishnu Vanapali, and after queen takes d2, I was a bit surprised by his choice. Obviously, we can capture both with the king and rook. In my opinion, rook takes would have been a better choice, because by doing so, you are maintaining the rook on the open file and you're getting ready to bring the other one in. Black can recapture the knight with both the A and C pawns. C pawn is probably more natural, but after this, white can continue first maybe with the move rook d6 to restrict or to make black go bishop b7, and now bringing the final piece into the game, followed by rook d7, entering the 7th rank, and I think this is dominating for white. If black would choose to capture with the a pawn instead, then I was looking at this move bishop f7, chase the rook away, followed by rook e1 and rook e7, and white's position is once again dominant. Obviously, you can't take the bishop because of back rank, so that's why white will manage to go rook e7 and have a huge advantage. Vishnu decided to capture with the king, which gave black maybe relatively chances to equalize again. C takes was probably a better choice. A takes b6 was played, however, and after some more moves, the players seemed to be kind of simplifying a bit towards an endgame where black could have had a bit more chances to draw. But the fact that white can create a further away passed pawn on the queen side certainly gives him the better edge in the position, and also his king is much better placed than black's, being stuck in the corner. So this was definitely Vishnu's moment to try to create something. Before was played rook e5. Look at this beautiful activity with the rook c5, rook takes c7. Now actually in this position, I believe before rook takes c7, this in-between move could have certainly helped white, because this allows the opening of the c file, so white keeps the rook open to protect the c2 pawn as soon as that file opens up. Obviously, if you go king there, you can just come back to b3, and we're back to the previous position where we don't need to worry. We just got the bishop from c4 to b3, and after the capture we can take. This is fully covered. Obviously after bishop g8 king h6 we don't have the time to do that, but no cause for alarm, we can still take. And now once again the rook covers c2, and that pawn is very important in making sure that white's position is going to be better. Extra pawn, and then of course the ability to potentially win that pawn and try to outplay black with the passed a pawn. After rook takes c7, pawn takes, white made the final mistake, after which the advantage goes away completely. He ended up capturing the pawn, which allowed his own pawn in c2 to be captured, and after that there's no way for white to really have any more winning chances. Instead, the correct move, which still would have maintained some advantage for white, would have been the move king b2. Hold on to the pawn a bit longer, play bishop b3, and then after that try to go grab the b pawns, at least one of them first. Then the king would get activated and we'll be back to the previous position with some tempos down, but it would still give white some chances. Unfortunately for Vishnu, he captured, and a few moments later the players agreed on a draw. So I'd say quite a bit miss for him. Another one of those positions that I kind of wanted to bring the attention to was from this game of Evelyn Kiao against Rebecca Cortez, which was played on board 3 of the Haring tournament of girls champions. And in this position, if we're evaluating it, we realize black is up a pawn and should not have much trouble trying to improve, but somehow black felt that it was necessary to make some pawn trades. But really the most important thing for black here is bringing the king closer to the game. So had Rebecca played the move king f7, she would have made her life relatively easy, because you know the check doesn't create any issues. Rook f6 to go grab the pawn, the a pawn simply starts marching, and there isn't much that white can do in order to stop that. Rebecca, on the other hand, felt she had to make the trade, but by trading this pawn to the one in c3, she actually ended up helping white get rid of the weakness and make its path to bring the king closer to the center with tempo relatively easy. e6 was played, and now black's king is a bit restricted, cannot go to f7 anymore. And the next few moves were very well played by both players, trying to improve the position. The bishop comes to c3, looking towards the king side, but also stopping the a pawn from advancing. And now it is in this particular position after king e7 that Evelyn played the move bishop b2. She probably felt that she's gotten some kind of restriction and doesn't need to worry too much. Maybe she thought her opponent was going to play king d6, and she could check and be fine in the position. But the truth is that after bishop b2, black is able to activate the rook. All black needed to do is activate the rook, switch the position between the king and the rook so that the rook can actually infiltrate, maybe attack h2, and support those passed pawns that arise. And here, after rook f8, the game is just simply over. And in order for white to really maintain some kind of balance, rook e5 had to be played. This move maintains the pressure on the g pawn and the h pawn. If you go rook g8, then we're going to go bishop d2, putting additional pressure. The king can come in, and this also takes away the rook from attacking the pawn in e6, so black wouldn't really get the chance to outplay white at this point. After bishop b2 and the rook got to f5, the pawns on the 5th rank are protected. The pawn in b5 is relatively weak and hanging, and white never really got the chance to bring the rook on the back rank. It would have been brilliant if she could have, but there's no real way to do that. And with another pawn under her belt, black was able to eventually convert this game and brought home the full win. This endgame was certainly one that we definitely need to talk about. It's one of those endgames that you think you know, but you may need to double check. If you happen to struggle with rook endgames, don't miss the opportunity to occasionally go back and review the important theoretical rook endgames like the Lucena, Philidor, Ventura, Horwitz, and many others that involve rook and pawn versus rook in different situations, so that you know how to outplay the opponent should you find yourself in a situation with an extra pawn, or save the game when you find yourself in a situation with material disadvantage. Here, black found the right approach. Like, obviously, it seems that this pawn is going to be cruising through, but we're still far from that. Black has done something very good, restricting its king, but he needs to do something about his own. It's way too far away from the b pawn, so what we need to do is just break through, trade the final pawn of white, and now we need to focus on how to stop the b pawn. So there are various positions of Chiron's that people have to study in order to know how to get from this to a Lucena or not. So highly recommend checking Chiron out if you haven't done so yet. It's the kind of endgame you really need to know in such a situation. Black seemed to be familiar with some of the ideas, but misplayed it in a bad fashion, and neither him or his opponent kind of realized it. So after rook c2, of course, it's important for white to be able to support the pawn to bring the king up. So we need to untie ourselves. We cannot trade the rooks. The king and pawn endgame is obviously lost. King b2, and now the correct move for black in this position is the move king to f6. You got to remember, 6th rank is the rank where you want to place your king, because from here you have the ability to get on 7th rank, and should you be cut off by white's rook, you will have the ability to uncut yourself with the rook to d8. Another reason why the king stays in f6 is to avoid being cut off both horizontally and vertically by white's rook, and I'm gonna make those lines in a different color just to make sure I emphasize on this as much as I can. The rook in c7 doesn't do that great of a job of cutting off. The king would simply advance and the rook would be chased away. But in this situation, after king f5, white could have played the move rook c6, and yes, this is a terrible cutoff, because if your king advances, you go to d5, b5 protects the rook, and as I mentioned earlier, black's king is restricted and white's king advances. There's no way for black to save this at any point. So king b3 was played in this position by white, missing that opportunity. So of course, immediately, now that you know, please tell me you know which one of these two moves black should play in this position in order to draw. Hopefully you chose the right one. It is king e6 indeed. King e5 was played, however, giving white once again the opportunity to restrict black's king. With b5, the game would be over. So the players kind of had this back and forth for a little bit of time, and white may have been a bit familiar with the idea, but rook c5 should be played only if the king were to be in d4. That way we would have had that double cutoff horizontally and vertically. In this case, we're not really having it. So king d6, this is a theoretical drawing position. Once the king now advances, basically all black has to do is just make sure that it doesn't actually get to b7. If it does, then we will have the Lucena position. So black did perfectly by checking white's king and now playing the move rook to b8, because white does not have the ability to push b5 for obvious reasons, and the king cannot advance for obvious reasons. So white's only way to try to advance here is by playing rook b5. Should white move the rook anywhere, black would start checking, and white doesn't have the ability to hide with the king anywhere other than b3. And then black simply stays with the rook on b8, or can go king d7 to attempt the trading of the rooks, and that endgame is a draw. But after rook b5, black has to be super precise in order to get a draw here. Rook a8 is correct, king b6, and now the correct move had to be played, or else black is in huge trouble. Unfortunately for Reddy, he blundered here. He felt that he could have waited one more move by moving the rook somewhere far on the 8th rank. He did play the move rook f8, but after this it allowed white's king to go to a7, and even if the king approached to check, cut off the king, and now the b-pawn simply marches. Rook f5 is not sufficient to really stop it, and now we're simply getting into Lucena position. If you know it, you know it. He didn't even allow the actual Lucena, he just made sure his king was safe, and now b7, b8 is coming. Going back to that moment where the final blunder was made by black, the correct move in this position for black is the move rook to a4. Placing the rook here keeps white's rook stuck to protecting b4, so the only progress for white is to advance with the king, bring the rook, push the pawn. No cause for alarm. As king b7 is played, we play the move king to d7. Sorry, what did I do? I messed up. My bad. Sorry. Wait, where are we? Not rook a4 yet. Not rook a4 yet. Yeah, this is gonna be Zugzwang, and black is losing. So we need to give one more check. Apologies. One more check. King a6. One more check. King b7. Now we go rook a4. Apologies. Thousands apologies. Rook a4. We keep the pawn under attack. And now, okay, if you go king b6, we don't do this because and white is winning. We go right back, because now, regardless of where the rook moves, we start with the checks once again. So this pattern of going back and forth, realizing when to do it, is very important. So after rook a4, rook b6 check, king d7 is the losing move, because now what happens is white plays b5 and you're in Zugzwang. If you go rook a5, we go king b8, and now if we go back, rook b7, and we don't have any more king moves, and if the rook moves, then white will have the ability to activate their rook, not to play b6, because now rook a6 once again, and it is black that puts whites in zugzwang, but instead we simply activate the rook, and if they attack us, whether a5 or b1, we're able to cover that pawn with the rook, then we can bring the king back to support the pawn and win. So in this particular position, when we are checked, it is very important to play the move king to d5. When we do this, the king comes to c4, attacks the pawn, and there's no way for white to save it. After b5, king c5, and this would be a draw. A tough rook endgame. It's easy to mess up. I almost missed it once, as you saw, but it is very important to be aware of this. If you're struggling with rook endgame, this is one that I actually see even more often than the Philly door these days. So I highly recommend checking out Sharon's positions with the b pawn and just making sure you know your maneuvers in order to be able to outplay your opponent should you be in a situation to do so. And I believe that was probably my final very important position that I wanted to go over with you guys. The last one, which was quite a bit impressive, I gotta say, was the one that happened in the game between Ted Wang and Liam Liu in the Rockefeller section of the Invitationals. In this position that's relatively balanced, surprisingly to me, black decided to play the move king to d7. Must have been really worried about this knight c7 idea. I feel him. I mean, it's not easy to come up with something to do. Obviously, you know, if you castle, this pawn is going to be hanging, and if you look at ideas with sorry, rook c8, you realize there's a check, you realize that's hanging, so you find yourself in a situation that you don't know what needs to be done. King d8 basically does the same as king d7, and then you look at the position and you're like, uh-oh, I think I simply messed up here. I don't think I have any other choice. I'm gonna lose. And I feel you. It's the kind of position that can get one a bit worried, you know, like even taking the pawn doesn't work, and then you just panic and you feel that everything is bad and you're gonna lose. So in such situations, it's tough to really come up with something that will make sense. But in the end, if you took all of those moves and you realize none of them works, then you go for the move rook to d8. You say, okay, fine, I'll give that pawn, but let me at least get something out of the situation. Let me at least try to get the pawn in c4, or if they take, let me at least get some activity with my knight, and eventually I'll find a way to get my pawn back. Instead, black felt that it was important to bring the king towards the center, but this move allowed white to get a lot of initiative, and eventually black's king got mated in the middle of the board. I just wanted to show it for the purpose of a beautiful kind of setup here that Ted was able to bring bishop g4, threatening the capture of the pawn, and after knight e5, he simply played c takes d5, giving up the bishop. That's why I like this, because I think it's kind of a beautifully organized position. All of white's pieces almost are in play. This rook can come into c1 very easily, while black's rooks don't really come into play anytime soon. And now d takes e6 check. Obviously, if you recapture, there's knight c7. King c8 was the best move, but it's really not natural to make that move here for black. Black played the move king c6, but after the nice prophylactic a4, white is threatening various mates, And after knight takes e3, the game was sealed here. Rook d4 mate. So this was my recap for round 3 of the Invitationals. I certainly hope you enjoyed it. And I cannot wait to see what round 4 will bring. Glad all of you stayed tuned so far. And without further ado, let's catch up with round 4. Hi Finver, welcome. Sorry, I was trying to stay focused to make sure I get that a good cut for YouTube. I think it's probably better that I do recaps before the stream. That way I'm not too tired. People get to catch up with what they missed the other day and such. I'm not quite sure how invitationals work for the senior championships, Finvar. So I couldn't answer that question about that, but you can certainly find some information on US chess website. Invitationals, I believe that is where you find the reasons why how people are invited to some of these invitational tournaments. Before we get into the game, I certainly feel like we should do a quick a recap of the standings. So let's get into that first, and then we'll catch up with the games. All right. So in the Irwin section, we have 2 players, International Master Alexander Matrosh playing against Grandmaster Alexander Fishbein. The 2 of them are the only players with 3 points, and there are 4 players trailing them with 2.5. International Master Timothy Taylor, FIDE Master Robbie Adams, International Master Stuart Rachels, and FIDE Master Doug Eckert. So that's gonna be definitely a very tough fight on top boards. I can't wait to get into the games. For those looking at the Denker, we only have 2 players with 3 out of 3. Those are International Masters Bahango and Eric Lee. They are facing one another, and then we have 7 players with 2.5 points trailing them. Also, there should be quite a lot of tough fights going on for sharing second, and depending what happens on board one, potentially catching up with the leaders. In the Barber section, only 1 player has been able to keep his 100% score. That is Marcus Schenk from Michigan. And we have 7 players with 2.5 trailing him to try to catch up. In the Haring, Megan Paragua drew yesterday, so she's out of the lead momentarily, but she can always come back. 4 players are sharing first with 3 points. Yang Shen, Women's FIDE Master Irene Fay, Women's International Master Omia Vidarti, and Rebecca Cortez. All of those players have had brilliant games we looked at, so I can't wait to see how those matchups will go. Then the 2 players that actually drew one another are Megan Paragua and Ananya Wadwa, so they won't be playing one another. They'll be playing against someone with 2 points, so we'll catch up with those games as well. Lastly, in the Rockefeller tournament, 5 players are still with 3 out of 3. FIDE Master Ted Wang, Ayapan Santosh, Xu Sean, Harvey Hanke, and FIDE Master Ling Shiju. Those players are certainly some to be on the look for. I actually have played against Harvey Henke in a tournament not long ago, and I remember I had a really tough time to be able to win. I actually got very lucky. For those of you who are interested in knowing how things are going in the traditional section, you guys won't be able to see it, but 5-day schedule starts today, by the way. and are having one grandmaster and two international masters joining in. Those would be Grandmaster Harsha Barathakoti, and as international master Sam Schmackel and Justin Sarkar. So that was the recap of the standings. If you happen to be on location, don't forget to take the opportunity to visit that mustard museum. I'm told is pretty cool, and I guess cheese is also famous for Wisconsin. So you got some stuff to do in between your focus on your games and other stuff, like preparation game and such. It's always important to take a moment to enjoy the surrounding areas, get some fresh air, and enjoy the surrounding areas. As chess players, we always focus so much on chess that we forget about the beauty of the locations we're visiting. So hopefully, if you happen to be there, you get the opportunity to do some fun stuff, to not just play chess. Although we love chess, but I'm just saying, you know, we there's more to chess players than just chess, right? At least I like to believe so. All right. So in this game between the two leaders, started as a Banco. All right, International Master Madras has gone for the aggressive. Oh wow, actually I'm not familiar with this. As much, usually people don't take, or maybe they do. They don't play e6, actually they play g6, or bishop takes a6. I'm learning a new line. Happy camper. Bishop g5, bishop e7. All right, well, looks like lots of trade-offs happened, and white is still up a pawn, but I'm not liking the development, the way the development went. Should we go queen b3? Should we go queen c2? Queen e2 is also, I'm not sure what's the best location for it. I guess not this. Maybe queen b3. This could be a move too, I presume. And then white may go for g3, king g2, knight f3, or knight e2, f3. Relatively balanced for now. We'll be back to catch up on this game. So we had an English theoretical so far. This must be some kind of spicy line that I'm not aware of. Knight h4, g5. The knight is trapped, obviously, but white should have some kind of way in order to get some activity, I think. This bishop is also somewhat trapped, so in some situations you may want to consider doing a3, b4, and c5. But you do need extra support for it, so maybe d4 here for white. and I don't believe they have time to take. After this, black is in trouble. So h6. And maybe we can go for this. We don't have time to play c4. Trying to come up with theory here is not really my forte, I guess. Maybe this. Not that, okay. How is white saving the knight? Maybe f4. Ah, f4, yes. So if you take, knight takes, safe. And if you go with the knight somewhere else, probably depending on where, white will get a bit of pressure on the diagonal and eventually it will save its knight. Okay, but this is very sharp. One wrong move and white will stay with material disadvantage. So Doug has to be careful with this position to make sure he doesn't miss saving his knight. That's for sure. You got to be very careful there. What have we got here? Another Benoni. Benoni's and Bengals. 4 pawns attack. Ooh, I haven't seen this in a really long time. I remember as a kid, I had a friend who was always playing this against me, and it was always tricky. It's not so easy to get equality, you know, with black. A4, of course, trying to stop b5. So basically the plan in 4 pawns, the main plan is to prepare e5. And sometimes you go e5, they capture, and you don't just recapture, you go f5. And you're actually building up a really nice attack on the king side. And black needs to find a way to either get b5 in or f5 in. So if he wants b5, he needs to go to b8. Maybe king h1. And usually c4, if I remember correctly from the time that I did this. c4 blocks the bishop from controlling b5, so we want to go b5 to support the pawn, but also we open the a7 g1 diagonal and we create an outpost for the knight. And the thing is that white should not be able to take the pawn back because of some kind of pressures everywhere here. So if you go back, this is hanging. And if you take, this should not be more than equal for white, I think, at least. c4 is important. I feel like Robbie would be familiar with that idea, so we might be able to see that. It looks like we had a modern over here. f5 is very nice. Opening up one of the fianchettoed bishop, trying to get the other knight in. Not rushing with the castle. In fact, black can choose which side he's gonna castle. He can probably do both, I think. Okay. What do you guys think white should play in this position? Should he attempt f3? Actually, like f3, I think. I don't like the capture. It seems to be helping black. Sometimes there's some pushes, but here, or maybe this, but no, f4. Wait, f4 is serious. We don't have time for d5, I believe, so yeah, it has to be f3. Malik should probably play f3 here. So we had some kind of boggle. This is something a lot of people do who try to play the Nimzo, and then it doesn't happen. They end up placing their pawns on dark squares. They want to go e5, and they get rid of their dark square bishop, so now they can place all of their pawns on dark squares for the bishop to come into play, and they kind of block the queen side and try to focus on the king side to build up some attack. Yeah, knight goes back to b8, being brought back to c5, and bishop g4. Yeah, black is getting a bit of activity here, and we'll see if white is able to fend it off. This is board 1 in the Denker, and we had some kind of a Catalan transposition, Queen's Indian again, kind of. This is an interesting move. I've seen it played occasionally, blocking the position first, and then after, say, knight d7, white will attempt eventually a b3. Maybe not just yet, maybe like try some knight f3, 5, or... But eventually I think b3 or b4 is something that white may want to do. And then push that pawn, try to enter on the queen side. This needs to be fended off in a way though, so we could also consider f4 here. And after g4, white will actually have the ability to run away with the king on the other side once the h-pawn starts pushing. So I'm not sure necessarily if this is... the players have the exact same rating if those ratings are correct. Let me check actually, because it's a bit too crazy to see that both players have the same rating. Yeah, they have the exact same rating. So Bahrain goes from Florida, while Eric Lee is from Northern California. Yeah, we'll see if f4 will be played. It depends if white is trying to play for a win, or if he's cool to... to get some solid position with f4. Oh, this is definitely going to be a tough matchup to look for. Avi's had a really great tournament, and I believe Avi's actually the co-champion from last year of the Denker. So both him and International Master Sandeep Sethuraman, who's not playing right now in the tournament, they won. They were co-winners of the Denker last year, by the way. So that can certainly tell you that we got someone to look forward to seeing. Trying to win it again, potentially. So we had an interesting English, I guess we call this the Larson attack or something, putting the knight in e5 and then seeing our chances to maintain the bishop opened and then eventually play some f4. It's still quite early to tell whether white will be able to build a strong attack. With the bishop in h7, sometimes it's hard to do things because you have to keep the pawn to support that. So you cannot go e3, king, queen e2. Sometimes, you know, white goes e3, king, queen e2 to be able to protect the pawn and then be able to support the kingside attack. Nice. Exchange variation later on in the Rela Pass. Caro-Kann in this game. G3, interesting. A lot of people in this line choose to play c3, bishop d3, knight e2, queen c2, you know, try to do like a system with long castle, and then they start attacking the king side. It's actually interesting to see that white decided to go for a more, I guess, positional approach. So probably rook e1 or bishop e3 will be played here. And then black needs to get this knight into place. Sometimes they go f5 and they bring the knight into play here or there. Other times they don't. Another Benoni, but this time with g3, which is a bit more solid for white, I'd say. But the ideas with e45 still remain: a5 to stop b5, and now we take, and e4. Stopping the idea with c4, and black attempts to trade. Yeah, this position is still takes, and probably white needs to do something like queen c2, bishop d2, f4, king h2 something, and eventually f4, a5. Still balanced. Or was this a semi-Slav? Relatively natural moves by both players, and eventually if white wants to get something, white has to push in the center. So e4 is the way to go. It looks like white did play this move, and it's probably going to be answered by capture. Everything would be traded, and now at some point black has to find the right moment to go c5. Maybe knight f6 first, and then c5. And black is okay. Black managed to equalize. Not much of the opening there for white. So we had another caro on this game. F3 caro, okay. I think it's called fantasy variation or something. I'm not a huge fan when black chooses to take an e4. Of course, it's a line, but I feel that white's play is relatively easier because we already have quite a bit of pressure that we can put on f7, and you have to be very cautious not to blunder something. I wonder if white could have attempted knight h4. I like this a bit more because it stops the bishop from going there, and we might be threatening ideas with captures, maybe queen coming in here or here, bringing the other rook into the game. I think white can have some very unpleasant ideas in this position. I like knight h4 quite a lot. Yeah. I think Rebecca's preparing knight d4, knight f5. But she's slightly inferior here because of the isolated pawn, but okay. It's not that bad. The position is not that bad. Megan has played Sicilian. So black has the IQP and does not have a knight that can go to e4, which makes things a bit more difficult for her, I would say. A bit more difficult to build up some attack. So white's probably gonna castle, queen b3, rook d1, and black will have to try to bring the rook on the c file as well, bishop f6, try to put pressure on c3. Eventually, if she can get rid of the pawn with d4, that would be great. It seems kind of hard to do that at the moment. This is a new move for me. Oh, white maybe tried to get the repetition, but black didn't want to. Knight f6. So she castled, and now she comes back. Okay. Possibly too premature. So I did play something like this myself as white at some point, and one of my opponents actually attempted defending the pawn. But not to be worried with white, you actually have knight e3, and you'll get the chance to take it back. Because, you know, there's no way you're not going to get it back with the pressure in c6. There's no b5, so if black doesn't play b5, you're good. You're getting your pawn back. For sure. Yeah, white's doing great. White is definitely doing great here. Hi, Chess Wizard. It's going great. Round is quite solid for now. Not much excitement, but this was certainly something. You know, this idea, you may think sometimes it's good to give the pawn back, but bringing the queen out to b3 is really nice for white. Yeah, black doesn't... It's hard to imagine you can actually hold on to the pawn. I think you're better off just not hold on, just trying to develop. Black did eventually develop, but under what circumstance? White is much faster, it's got the pressure, and I think you're gonna lose some material very soon. Okay, if you go here, what is the best way for white to win something? Can we go e4, or is it too soon? I kind of like it. I also kind of like this move. This seems crushing. It's tough. Black might be in big trouble here. Oh no, this I just take. So what else can... Oh, queen? No. No, I think black is losing material. Cool. My voice sounds like it's... I don't think it's 80% yet. I still don't like the way I hear myself. But I've been drinking a lot, as usual, like I said, and doing some infusions. I'm recovering. All good. All good. This game hasn't been advancing much. Okay, I mean, it's still too early to tell. But white will have to play f4 eventually if she wants to get something out of the position. Castle or not castle, but f4, f5. And then kind of focus on the king side. There will be breakthroughs with c5, but I think white shouldn't rush. You're better off focusing on that side of the board instead. What kind of opening was this? Okay, Rui. So black's plans in these positions are king h8 and f5, and then get a knight to f4. White oftentimes goes for the trading of that bishop, bringing the knight in, and also tries to activate it. d5, f5, but also d4. So each side is gonna see which one of them will get it first. This also looks relatively balanced, though. Of course, was it a Sicilian or what? Yeah, kind of. I think this is all theory. Well, most of it. Alexandra, thank you so much for the raid. I hope you had a great stream. How is it going? I appreciate the raid. A long time no see, but I also haven't been streaming. But hope the stream went well. I'm currently going over, just catching up basically with the U.S. Open Invitationals, one of the biggest tournaments organized by the U.S. Chess Federation after the Super Nationals, basically. But yeah, it's all good. Awesome. Thank you, Alexandra. And yeah, just trying to catch up with everything for now. The positions are relatively balanced in most of the games, which is good because it gives us some time to catch up with everything and not stay stuck on one game for too long before we miss a lot of opportunities in other games. But yeah, mostly been focusing on catching up with that. Here we have a Dutch. Interesting. I don't think I've seen many people who do this. So basically, like, these lines in the Dutch, what you're trying to do with white is, because of the way black starts with the pawn formation, they leave that kind of hole in e6. White usually plays the move d5. With this move, they stop the push, or well, black sometimes does it, but then when the en passant happens, black remains with the backwards d6 pawn that white ends up putting a lot of pressure on. So, but I like these lines where white actually ends up developing the knight in h3, because from there the knight can go to f4 or g5, as opposed to just going to g5 like it could here. But it's interesting to see that white did not go for d5. Instead, white played queen c2, and black decided to switch for potentially a stone wall. But I don't think black is ready to do that in this position. Actually, maybe white could have just played bishop f4, bishop e5, or knight e5. But okay, b3 seems natural too. And now the position is quite safe. Temper early for black, until I come up with some breakthroughs. What is a good breakthrough that we can come up with? Should we take? I don't think we're ready. I mean, I would love... Oh, maybe queen e2 first. Let's just protect the pawn first, because it's attacked. And then maybe one of the rooks to c1. Maybe this one. Move the knight away, even here. f3, chase the pawn, rook d1. And then at some point, if we can actually push the a and b pawns, we definitely should do so. It's is the right kind of approach that we want to have. So close Sicilian transposition into an open one. And now we have the Najdorf. h3, e5, knight e2, theory, h5. h5. I don't like h5. I guess it's main line. But isn't white's main idea to go bishop g5, queen d2, and castle? h5 doesn't allow h6 anymore, so you just miss your chance. Okay, so after queen e7, black protected d6, and will be threatening some b4, but is white forced to go knight d5? Why not just castle? Wait for him to go b4, then you can go knight d5 or knight d4. I don't think it's necessary to be made right now. This might be premature. It might be too much. But like, if I manage to go knight f6, I should be fine. The pawn is covered, pressures, you know? Maybe I don't even castle. Maybe I'm just gonna keep my king in d7 and be chillaxing. Yeah. I'm not afraid. I'm not afraid of anything. And lastly, the second board in the Rockefeller, which is the elementary school championship. We have this Sveshnikov variation, bishop g5, all this theory, knight takes, bishop. Oh, wasn't it bishop takes f6? And then c4? I thought that's how it was. That could be wrong. I could be very wrong. But I don't think I am, because I've seen this pawn structure. He can't trick me. Okay, but white decided not to trade the bishop, wanted to keep it longer. But if you keep it longer, then yeah, d5 will be played. And black should be okay now that he got the center attacked. This is gonna, do you guys think this is gonna be another one of those Dewain games where he totally outplays his opponent from a relatively equal position? This is not really equal because black's pawns are more menacing than white's pawn majority. And white is behind with development, so hey, I'm looking forward to seeing another beautiful. I think I'm learning so much from this kid, and I mean, he's in the elementary school. By the way, he is the current champion. Well, actually, they were co-champions last year in the Rockefeller between him and Vivan Prakash. Vivan does not. I did not see Vivan playing, I think, this year in the championship, so we'll have to. I wonder where he's. I wonder if he's playing in the Pan American. I have not checked, but maybe. Whoa! Well, that was something. We're definitely up for another exciting round. I mean, I know the U.S. Open is also taking place, so maybe I can take a brief look and see if there are any interesting positions before I take my break. Everything seems relatively balanced. Yeah. Everything seems balanced for now, so we'll be looking at those potentially later. But anyways, guys, I will be taking a short break. I hope you all had a good time enjoying the stream so far. If you joined recently, I really appreciate you being here. Thanks for joining in. We're currently catching up with the US Open and Invitationals. Before the break, we caught up with the opening stage of the game, and now, as more time has passed, almost 2 hours into the game, the players are getting into the middle game stage. Some of them are getting into an end game. And I have the feeling we'll see some more excitement, maybe some mistakes, maybe some very nicely outplayed games, maybe some attacking games, or maybe some draws, because, you know, all results are possible. This was one of those interesting games that started off as a banco, and then there was this e6 idea where black got the chance to break through white center, and then now it's got two full-fledged pawns in the center, but white is trying to kind of castle by foot in a way, get the rook into play, and start putting pressure on those pawns. Will white be able to hold this game? Will he be able to outplay the very strong and in a amazing shape Grandmaster Alexander Fishbein, or is this game going to end in a draw? Be sure to stay tuned in so that you remain notified with what is going on here. And I'm putting in the chat, I'm pinning the link where you can follow the games live. If you're interested in any particular game, if I'm missing any important moments, whether US Open or Invitationals, though my main focus are the Invitationals, if you see an interesting game taking place in the Open section, please don't hesitate to let me know. I would be very happy to look at it. So when we left off earlier, I was mentioning that white has to be very precise about saving this knight in h4, because right now it's not so sure what's gonna happen, but white was able to find this idea d4, and after h6 knight e3. I think I was looking a bit more at this a3 idea. Personally, not knight e3, but I feel like this can work as well. So there's this, and then b4, bishop b6, takes, and in this position I was suggesting the move d5. But in the game, white decided to go for this move knight e3, getting the knight away from the attack, so that I guess a3, b4, c5 would come in next as black captures the knight, which actually happened. a3, chase the bishop away, and now h3. Black attempts some, I guess, putting white's bishop in the corner, and now he has to figure out what is the best way to give up the bishop in b6. I mean, it's going to be lost, obviously. Back, the extra piece will not stay, but how will things happen? That is the question. So black has remained with a relatively weak king, but will white find its way to it? I'm not sure that he would. Like f3 could be something that white considers eventually, if not here. Queen d2. And check this out, earlier, like maybe when g5 was played, black actually had close to an hour and a half, almost his full time at the start, while white was struggling to find a way to save the knight for about half an hour. But now the two players' times have relatively equalized. So now I'll have to see if white manages to find some unpleasant ways to continue putting pressure on black's king. So this was the 4 pawns against the Benoni, and black seems to have put the knight in h5, which allows this capturing, and oftentimes this is seen as as a big weakness for black, because obviously it will allow some pressure on those pawns. But if we go queen d1 directly, then of course there's bishop g4. So white is preparing in a way to go queen d1 by pushing f5, blocking the bishop in c8 so that it doesn't go to g4, and now wants to do that. But with this move, there's always a but. There's always something that's not quite all right. The idea that black's bishop comes into play here, or maybe the rook, or maybe the knight, is not quite something that white necessarily wanted to give up in this position. I don't know if we can do it directly. Maybe not, because still queen d1. Like if we give a check first, for example, king h1. Now I feel that black could try some infiltration techniques. Queen e3, maybe knight takes e4. Queen d4, queen d1. What about sacrificing? No, I don't think black is ready for that. But that is an idea to be on the look for. Bishop b7 and trying to take. Like something like this probably could work. This could get very devastating for white. We take here first, and then we take, and it's GG. But maybe white would play f6, which I'm not liking. Okay, we need to come up with a way to stop. Okay, check is fine, but we need to stop f6. I do not want to allow that move to be played under any circumstance. How can we stop f6? I don't know that this is too ugly, isn't it? Definitely. But this still allows the queen to come up. Unless queen e3 actually works, but I doubt it. Yeah. There's even better move. I'm not seeing it, guys. I've been looking at this position for way too long and not seeing anything to stop f6. Unless he doesn't care, he's just suddenly like, I don't care about this thing. I'm just gonna... No, but I mean, this is serious. Like, you cannot not care about it. Giving up the bishop is definitely... Really? Ah, and now... But what? Sacrifice? Oh, what? This works? If you go here, you're gonna be in trouble. Because of bishop b7 and then check, or check first and then bishop b7. Ouch. So after queen takes d5, you have to go knight f3. And then we get to take. Okay. Finally, after hours and hours of trying, finally we have come up with something. So bishop takes c3. That is deep. Or well, check first. Either this first or check first. Goes away and then takes. Wow. Let's see, will Robbie find it? He played queen c5. He started with a check. Okay. That seems natural, right? Like we expected that was gonna be the move in the position eventually. And then he has to find the capturing of the knight. I believe he will find it. I believe in Robbie. That is deep. Because like that's the last thing you want to think about as black. Because come on, I mean, you got the bishop there, that's your king gathered bishop, you need to keep your king safe, you just weakened your position, now you give up the bishop, but apparently that is the way to go. That is the way that you're gonna be able to save things. Okay, that was some kind of deep thought. All right, Malik is doing well. I ended up playing f4, so I was suggesting f3 here, but you want to be more aggressive. I like it. g4, knight takes. Wow. Let's go, Malik. Takes. Now e6 is hanging. So black gave up 2 pawns for the piece, and now is giving up a third one, but now the king is in trouble. So Malik is doing great. d5. Yeah, black is gonna struggle with the castling, so we have 2 pawns for the piece. But look at that king. There's no way that king survives anytime soon. In addition, white has ideas with rook e1, g4, and the king will be... If the knight moves away, there's also bishop d4. Black's king will be Oh, in big trouble. I like this. I like Malik's chances in that position. This position is still quite slightly more comfortable for white, but it's not clear yet what's gonna happen. The only bad thing is, of course, light square bishop, which would be ideal if we can get rid of it. Not so easy. And then for plans, white wants to play b4, c5, trade things off, and advance their majority if possible. I think that would be definitely something to do. Well, with the queens off the board, I guess white never played f4 as I have suggested earlier. But with the queens off the board now, there's not too much to look for, because, like, you know, if we trade, black will be okay. If we don't trade, we need to hold on to the knight because black might be threatening to grab it. Can also go knight e3. This is quite a typical idea, but I just need to make sure there's no tactics like rook b5, b6. Suddenly black is getting into play, getting the bishop out. And if we do f4, just keep the balance. Maybe this will be played by white to keep the equality. This is going to be an interesting game to follow because white will find a way to advance the pawns towards the king side, while black will try to create a pass pawn on the queen side with b5, c4. But it's gonna be a challenge for both of them for white because the queen is badly placed, and what is a good location for it? It's not so clear with the bishop in h7, kind of keeping the pawn pinned. As for black, pushing there is also not going to be easy. I mean, maybe you can play b5, c4, but then if white puts the queen in c3 or bishop in c3, the pawn will be restricted, so the way they continue will remain to be seen. Hi there, Sujit. Welcome. Thanks for joining. Not much has changed here. There's definitely some preparation of f5 for black. It's actually interesting to me that white played the move knight e5. Obviously, white wants to find an opening on this side of the board, but when and how? If you take like this, maybe we go back and then we activate. If you take the other way around, then we helped you open up the bishop. We can still go back. Bishop b7. It's not easy. It's not easy at all. finding the progress, it's hard because you know you're slightly better, but if the opponent doesn't make more weaknesses than they already have, then you don't have much. Obviously, white wants to open up the file, but when is the right moment? I don't know about this rook b1, what exactly he was planning to do when he played it. Maybe b4, b4, c4, like c3, b4. I still don't see much, like, if he does something like that, black will probably, wait, 5 is not, he's not ready for it yet, but maybe he can attempt some queen trades, and yeah, there's not much for white to go on. It's just a matter of how much you want to improve and in which fashion you will do it. Okay, so now white will probably retreat with the bishop, attempting to play f4 and seeing how black is planning to save the bishop. f5 obviously doesn't work because of bishop g5. I guess black after f6 can consider giving up the bishop, like in the previous game that we saw of Robbie Adamson, where bishop takes c3 was the best move in the position, just getting rid of the knight and improving the position after, like keeping the pawns on dark squares should make sure that black maintains relatively safe position, and then he can focus on the queen side. I like c5. I'm actually surprised Omiya didn't get in c5 or e5 herself. I was suggesting here after bishop d3 to just play c5. Hi there, Kajudo. The tournament is going alright. Is going quite alright, I'd say. c5 is very important for black. But she decided to prepare it a bit more, which allowed white to place. And this is a very strong move that Yang Shen found, because by pushing c5, you're stopping black's attack when counterplay and, you know, opening up of the bishop in b7. That bishop now is very, very badly placed. It's gonna stay restricted forever unless you find a way to open it up. So yes, we did give up this outpost, but we don't care about it as long as that bishop remains, you know, stuck in b7. White is doing really nice here. Very strong move c5. And Omiya is now thinking, because she might have realized she should not have allowed this move to be played. Not much has changed there since we left off. Megan is not doing that great. Probably c7 is not the right placement of the queen. Maybe, but we don't have time for rook c8 just yet. This is a tournament commentary. Yes, Kajudo. So basically, this is the US Open and Invitationals. It's one of the largest, well, the biggest tournaments that US Chess organizes, other than the Super Nationals, of course, which happens every 4 years. So it brings players anywhere from youngsters, adults, seniors, and it has a few events, side events as well, not just the main event, but also side events. So I'm currently looking at the Invitationals tournaments, which are which bring players from all 50 states of the US. There's a Denker, the high school tournament of champions, the Barber, the middle school tournament of champions, the Rockefeller, the elementary tournament school of champions, and Haring, which is the all girls tournament of champions. So, and in addition to this, there's the Irwin, which brings in the strongest seniors from every single state. So every state usually sends a representative, and then usually the organizing state gets a bonus player. So yeah, Kajudo. So normally I would have streamed myself, but it's been a really busy summer, as I announced in the last stream that I had a few months ago. And then unfortunately I came down with losing my voice, and I followed all the doctor's instructions. I was supposed to be fully recovered by now, but I'm still working on it, and hopefully I will be back fully. So I haven't really had the chance to stream on my channel to let everyone know, but I'm glad you found US chess and are here. If you know anyone else who may be interested to follow, feel free to send them this way. I'll be here for the entire week commenting on the tournaments, typically morning and afternoon. At least tomorrow is one more day where we do morning stream starting around 11 a.m. Eastern time, and then the last 3 rounds of the US Open will be covered by me. The rounds 7 and 8 start at 8 p.m. Eastern time, and then the last final round at 3 p.m. 3 p.m. or 4 p.m. Eastern time. So I'll let everyone know. There's a link with a schedule as well here. That you can follow. Maybe that one. The stream schedule, so you can see when I'll be going live. I'll also be doing a recap on Friday in the morning. So I'm trying to do both morning and afternoon. Tomorrow there's just gonna be a morning stream, and yeah, like the winner of the US Open qualifies for the US Championship later this year, and that's going to be quite exciting. But the winner of these competitions I'm going over, they have the ability to win scholarships for college, and of course they win prizes and have the ability to, you know, represent their state in the best possible way. So I think that's quite exciting. Was this something that I could have done or no? I guess black is able to defend, because this is an option. Okay, so maybe just rook c1 then. Bring a new piece into the game. There's no threat in h7. There's nothing that, you know, black should be really worried about. I mean, sorry, white should not really be worried about. Seems like this is the right kind of approach. So rook c1 was played now, and the question is, where is black going to move the queen to? Maybe queen d7. And then I want some Maybe, I don't like... I feel like something like this potential, maybe not that. Bishop c4. Still doesn't win white enough. What about queen c2? But then g6. Maybe bishop d3, but again g6 for h6. How is white going to be able to... I mean, technically I could do this, but still lost the pawn. Maybe we just don't care. Fine, we lost the pawn back. We can try to focus on improvement. So, okay, b5 could be an improvement, or maybe simply move the queen, queen b2 to double up on the file is a nice improvement. Even queen c2, or no, queen c2, b4 pawn won't be protected for a while. I definitely like these kind of ideas where it attracts black to weaken the position a bit more, and then we'll have, you know, extra pressures. So that's probably something that white is willing to do. It's looking a bit unpleasant for Megan, but I feel like she's gonna find some way to hold. We'll be back to see. Ooh, this looks extra winning. Extra winning. What happened? Oh yeah, this was the game where white was gonna win material. Looks like that happened exactly as I said. You've heard from a GM that if you have 3 or more pieces facing your opponent's king, there is a good tactic. There could be something in there for sure. Yeah, definitely. It's not sure, but there's a big chance there will be. So you have to consider potential sacrifices for sure. Yeah. So white did end up going for this f4, f5 idea, trying to build up some pressure on the king side, and I like it. This is the right kind of approach you want to have. A4 wasn't going to bring you too much, especially with that pawn hanging, so probably white now will continue with g4, h4, king h1 and such. Seems pretty decent for white. c5. Okay, c5 is definitely the right kind of pressure the black wants to have to open up his bishop. So you have to decide if you're going to go d5 yourself, take. If you go d5, this is usually the way black proceeds. And then moves the bishop to c5, queen b6, and puts pressure in f2. It's going to be an unpleasant situation for white. Not too bad, but yeah, the black has something concrete that they can do. Knight f5. White maintains the pressure. I like it. So the idea is if we take, now white starts cruising through in the position, because you know you don't have sufficient power to hold on to the center, so you can't do that. If you go c4, bishop c2, and black might not have time for this still, because I think you can probably take anyways. So what to do now with black after this move? Maybe this, and now it's time to put pressure in the center still. So maybe rook e8. Now that the bishop is gone from the diagonal, we can put pressure. Bishop e7 and pressuring the center. We don't want to go d5, because if we go d5, I think white likes this potentially. Maybe not as much as I thought, because white opens up the bishop, so I figured that's not really the ideal approach, but maybe it does work. It does. Okay. So takes and okay, so he did that first, but now if he takes, there's also the ability to take with one of the knights, maybe even this one. And white will actually have a more comfortable position. That having the opportunity to remain with the knight in f5 is certainly a plus. Two octopus in an arm wrestling, yeah. I can totally see that. I can totally see that in this position. I agree. I'm not liking the position. I'm just sitting here and I'm like, what is going on? The knight is stuck. Black's more active. This rook doesn't do much. There's no way for white to advance the pawns. D3 will happen eventually. I'm not liking this position for Bobby. Not even a little bit. I don't even see this is reminiscent of one of my games that I won really nicely with black, and I'm not really seeing any kind of counterplay for white. That's tough. Looks like we had a blunder here. Why was that a blunder? It's not like the tactical blunder, but knight c7, activating the rook. And that is an issue. That is definitely an issue. This is one of those Sicilian positions where white has gotten some activity, the pawn remained weak, but this is still in c2. And whenever you're gonna play c3, there'll be some b4 breaks, and eventually everything will be traded off into a draw. Black also needs to figure out the right moment to go d5. Obviously, here's too soon. Too soon to play it, but at some point there will be a moment where d5 may work, or maybe f5. Or maybe now rook d8 to just cover the pawn and prep for d5 and keep the balance. Not much to expect here. Ted has not taken control just yet with his usual outplaying of the opponent, but he has improved quite a bit from the position we had. Like, he's advanced his majority quite a bit. Those pieces remain badly placed. White finally found c4, which is very good to get the knight out. Knight comes to d3, and it's coming. Some activity for black is certainly on its rise here with knight d3. So, okay. I mean, very, very interesting games, I gotta say. And I'm not liking this position for International Master Matros. He's taking the 2 pawns. He's up 3 pawns, but guys, remember, material is not always the most important thing in chess. It is an important thing, but not the most important one, and if you're not careful, you can get into some very dangerous situations. I would not have touched that pawn even if you paid me to do it. I'm sorry, International Master Matros, but I would not have done that. Why did you take it? Your king is in danger. Just go king f2, rook d1. That was a plan. That's what we talked about. Well, I talked about. You wouldn't have known. I just feel like, no, I wouldn't take that pawn, even if you paid me to. It's like the rook comes in, and now the other rook will come in. Rook c8 with tempo. You can't even go king f2. Where's white's king gonna hide? There's no more hiding spot. And I have the feeling a sacrifice is on the rise. I don't know, depending on where you move the king. Like, I'm already seeing it. Like, you go queen e3 or something. I'm already seeing it. I don't know how, but I'm seeing it. I'm seeing it. Okay, does this work? No, that's too much. Okay, fine. That doesn't work. It's not that obvious. Fine. What about knight c4? Knight c4 seems devastatingly devastating. At least, like, we can take an e3, rook takes d4. Again, the issue is the king. The king is a killer. You learn something new, or which part? Which part did you learn? The material is not always important. Yeah, it's not. King safety. King safety first, other things later. It's like, health first, money later. That's it's the same as in life. Cause listen, I've outdone myself this summer and almost paid off a very big price with my voice. So um even I learned that lesson. I just did. So I'm glad I can share it further with my viewers. But yeah, I mean, I feel for international master matchers because I don't know if he survives this. It's gonna be brilliant. It's gonna be a brilliant survival. I'm gonna write about it. But if he doesn't, still gonna write about it. Feel bad. I have to comment on games and then I have to write about them. Like I bet people whose games I comment on, especially those who are not doing well, they cannot wait to get me into a tournament to play against me and get the chance to get me back by winning a game against me. Because I feel like this is the curse of being a commentator or a writer. You just need like, I'm crying now, but you need to find the moments to write about, right? So I mean, it's gonna be by taking advantage of someone's tough, uh difficult situation that they're dealing with, and you're gonna feel bad, but that's your job. That is your job, to bring people, the truth, to bring them learning opportunities. And yeah, tough. I need to stop crying. No more tears. Okay, let's go to the next one. So here, Doug was able to build up something on the F file, but he played D5. Doesn't that just give up a pawn for free? I know I just talked about pawns, but I mean, this is a different kind of story. He wants bishop B2 check. This is probably bad. Maybe there's something even better. Yeah, there's too many things to deal with. But I guess we can just give up the exchange. Sorry, you can't take it. You need to move the queen first. Oh, never mind. If you can't even take it, then you're good. The queen is hanging. My bad. So what was his plan? Oh, this actually happened. King G8. Okay, fine. G8. H7, I thought. I guess G8 controls. Still defends F7. So what does white want to do now? I mean, you have to move the queen somewhere, but you see, if you compare this king to the previous game, black's king is somewhat at least defended by the pawn, the bishop. There's still a few pieces around that keep it safe, whereas in the other position, that was not the case. And that's why it was important to me to make you aware of that, because, some things are important. All right. This has happened. I'm super impressed with Finemaster Robbie for going for it. He didn't go for it immediately, which that makes me less impressed, but it's okay. He did it now, so good job. Good job. He did it. Bishop takes, and now he went for it. He should have gone for bishop c3 immediately, but okay. We're gonna forgive him for that. We're gonna forgive him temporarily, and then we'll remind him. Ooh, my goodness! Look at this brilliant finish by Malik. So this is a really nice. This is a really nice game. I gotta say, this is probably gonna be one of those that I'll comment. Malik, good job, Malik. F5, F4, G4 takes. Bishop takes. All right, so he's got 3 pawns right now. Gave up 1, but the fact that black took it again is one of those things, right? Took a pawn, but the king is crushed in the center. Now you place d5 to trap the bishop in d4. Uh-oh, sorry. Knight f5. Goes back. Of course, you're not going to give up the bishop. Come on. No bishop to be given in this situation. And now he had all these ideas. Let's see which one he did. Queen e2. Okay, tempo to the bishop. Rook g1, tempo to the bishop. There's no place to move the bishop. Black had to give it up. Now rook f takes f5 is coming. Ouch. This is a killer mode. Malik has given 2 draws so far, but he came back strong with a killer mode on Coach Malik. Good job on that. Bishop h4, trapped queen, GG. This has got to be the game of the round or something. Definitely a nice one. I like it. I definitely like it. Beautiful game. Coach Malik. He still got it. I was kind of nervous there for him for a bit. Don't tell him that, but, you know. Alright. Because he drew 2 games, that's why. Uh-huh. What was this move played for? Is white considering rook takes d4? Is he thinking of it? And if he is, was that the best rook to be given for the knight, or is this a better one? That's the question, because in a way, like, I feel like maybe we want to have the rook on the f file instead. No, this does not give black sufficient counterplay, because we don't get... If somehow we could get 1 passed pawn there, maybe, but it's not so clear we would, so... That's why. Knight g4, knight e6. I'm still not getting the point of this move. A bit suspicious. Still equal, this position, still very equal. Looks like white made a mistake. Do you think this could have been a move? If only I could magically teleport my knight to c4, how brilliant would that be? Super brilliant, but we can't. So I have to deal with it. If we just go there. Okay, this cannot be that bad. Okay, they repeated. Okay. Alright, makes sense. Not sure the kind of result that either one of the players wanted, but it's a pretty balanced position. No progress has been made relatively. Here, though, there was an imbalance here. How did that imbalance happen? Irwin decided to sack the knight, and he probably won the exchange now with bishop h6. So he basically got 2 pawns and a rook for 2 minor pieces. But if those pawns are not advanced enough, how powerful are they really? Probably not that much. And I tend to enjoy more playing with the minor pieces instead, personally. So I see bishop b7, takes. Still balanced. Could black have played this? No, bishop f4. What about this? This is very scary. The knight comes into play, and it does look somewhat scary, I gotta say. I don't think it was necessary for black to just trade there. I mean, okay, now he's trying 93, but white is a bit active. This pawn seems capturable, and just grab it. 93, we'll take him b2. Yeah, probably trade off to a draw. What was... wait a minute. So this was the game where black played rook d8, which allowed this very strong c4, c5 I was mentioning about, which restricted the bishop in b7. And I'm kind of liking the way that white kind of set up a position to totally restrict the bishop in b7. Now she has to switch over and focus on the king side, so we'll see if she will be able to do that. But the thing is that we need to make sure that bishop in b7 remains over there, that never comes out to play, ever. That is the bad piece. White also, of course, needs to bring this bishop back to c1 into play as well. So yeah. White just probably focused a bit too much on wanting to checkmate. And this is an issue obviously you can't take as a mate. And if you do this, I think you're losing. This is like one of those tactical ideas. Queen takes f6. And you also cannot go rook g4 because we still take. So if you take, I think queen c1, right? Also wins for black. Back rank. How is white surviving this? I don't see a way. It is tough. Queen g5 was found in this position. And now I think Rebecca is in big trouble. I'm not really seeing a way to save herself. At all. Knight f3. Yeah, I guess that's the only way, but black remains with an extra pawn, better bishop for the knight. The back rank is still an issue. It's a problem. Uh-oh, what happened here? Is this a blunder? Blunder alert. Oopsie daisy. You can't do that, so white simply gets two minor pieces for the rook. Rook and a pawn, but okay, these pieces are way more dangerous. Megan very likely could be able to hold. I mean, she's had an impressive result lately, but Esther has played really well in this tournament too, so I'm not sure what the game will bring, but rook d4 is definitely a move not very difficult to see, which I think Esther will find. And then it's gonna be tough for Megan. We'll be back to catch up. Oh, up with that game. I did not expect to see a... Oh, this is the game where white ended up winning the exchange, and she outplayed her opponent. I'm surprised some of these players still play till mate, or well. Alright. White has been able to push through. And she's up to pawns. This one is gonna fall. But this bishop is bad. So 1 pawn up, but bad bishop. Black has sufficient compensation, more than enough. Not much here. This was a game that I was feeling very sad for Bobby because the knight was restricted, no possibility to advance pawns, and looks like things are happening here. Which one was this game? I feel like I missed a lot of it. So White had a great position with active rook and everything, and he played bishop a3. Oh my goodness, no way! This makes me sad. Knight b5. And now you gotta figure out how to give up material. Okay, after rook c4, rook c5, you just give up a free piece. At least you need to try to grab something. You know, just grab some pawns to have some counterplay. Oh, so I blundered and then he just kind of collapsed emotionally, very likely. I feel bad for Artemi. And yeah, once you give up the piece, you got nothing. It's tough to come back from this. I get it. Ooh, rook endgame. This one might be one of those that I analyze right now. It looks kind of equal. 4-4. Pass pawn, which will go. Very likely this will be traded for that. And even if black loses both of those pawns for this, it should be a draw, but let's not count it just yet, just in case. And Ted seems to be having quite a good position. Once again, outplaying his opponent. This is his typical style. I mean, this kid has a great future, I gotta tell you. So a4 is gonna be the future. Not just that, I mean in chess, like he's gonna do great. a4 takes, open up the file. When he's ready, double up first on the a file. When he's ready, he'll take in b3, infiltrate on the second rank, and he's all good to go. What a rerun. Oh my god, this gotta be a tough loss for International Master Matros, because he's at a good position, relatively decent. All he had to do is just make sure he would simply play king f2, get his rook into the game, and he would have been fine. Unfortunately, he fell for the trap a lot of us fall for, materialistic needs in this human nation. I wish we could change some things occasionally, but he fell for the trap that there's nothing concrete yet. But the thing in chess is that initiative is actually much more powerful than real material, and this is exactly what happened to him. Rook d8, knight e5, rook c8, and now looks like black was able to simply get in with the queen. Rook takes d4, brilliant tactic. If you take with the queen, there's probably gonna be a mate still somewhere around the horizon. Not sure where yet, but something like this, and then g2. And if you take with the pawn, rook c2 anyways, I guess the same thing. And he got mated. What a brilliant performance by Grandmaster Fishbine, and tough loss for International Master Matros. Hopefully he can come back in the next game. So White was able to win the exchange eventually, somehow. I'm actually not sure how, because I thought queen g5, and the queens got traded, and then black ended up giving up the exchange still because the knight is hanging, right? probably knight e7 had to be rook d8 was not necessary for black. Probably knight e7 was the move to be played because black maintains the d-file close, which is what you want when the opponent has an extra rook. Don't give them the activity with the rooks and then bring in the king, and black should be fine. Rook d8 gave white one more chance here to keep black a bit tied up, and then g4, but probably black is still doing okay after king g7. I thought Robbie was doing quite decently here after the trade. No. No, no, no. Was it bishop b7? What did we say? Bishop b7 was necessary. He had to bring a new piece. I mean, he's trying to get a new piece, but I guess not this one. He brought the wrong piece. No, rook a5. Ah. Bronze white had something even better than this. It's like knight takes or something. Oh. Maybe knight f3. No. Don't tell me it's knight b1. No, that would be crazy. If it actually was knight b1. Maybe queen takes. What did white miss here? It says +4. Oh, wait, it's 94. No. I literally tried every move. Besides rook a5, which of course, but the rook a5 drops like 2 points of advantage. So what is the move? If someone sees it, please enlighten me. And knight b3. Oh my god. Oh my god. That's after I tried 10,000 things, of course I'm gonna find it. This reminds me sometimes my students, you know, like I teach them and we have cameras, so they're looking at me, and sometimes they just look and they look at my facial expression to see if the move that they said was correct. And then sometimes I guess I show a smile unwillingly, you know, one of those nonverbal communication things. And then they're like, oh, this must be it, you smiled. Oh, this must not be it, because you, and then they try every single move. Finally, they find it and they're so happy. And I'm like, no, you spent 10,000 moves to figure it out. This is what happened to me, see? Karma gets me back. It should be more, giving more leeway. Knight b3. This is too gorgeous. It's hard to find, I guess, for some reason. Because probably in rook e1, there's no way to stop the mate. Sorry, that arrow is supposed to go all the way till e8. That is just crazy. Wow. But okay, rook a5 was played. It still gives white the advantage, but maybe not as much. Now knight b3 doesn't work as great, probably. Somehow black escapes. No, rook 8. We have another something with b2 or what? Hi, Kingside. Welcome. What is the move now? And queen c5 back, but then this is over. And this is over too. Help. Help. I need somebody to help me. This is crazy. This is the craziest. I can't believe I found this. This is the craziest position ever. And if you take, I guess, here, you're in trouble. You lose. So if you take, and you can't take, because probably there's perpetual. I mean, this is definitely very crazy. Who would have thought that in that position, you actually get to save yourself? I mean, come on. So this move does not work now because of, what did I say? Takes. Here, queen f4. The brilliancy that saves the game. Okay, so white still is supposed to be winning now, but how? Because like takes, and now what? Does it work now? No, it's probably same thing as before. So maybe knight f3. I'm really curious what's going to happen in this game, because from the way I've seen the games and in the past years, Timothy Taylor, International Master Timothy Taylor, has proven to be a very tactical player, and it's going to be interesting to me to see whether he goes for this line or he's going to go for knight b3. He didn't miss it the first time, but that is a move you want to do. I mean, queen f4, I think, is the only move in the position that saves the game for black. So the question is he going to be able to be safe? Is he gonna be able to find the win with knight f3 or... I need to come back to that game. Another draw. This is not a blunder. This is engine acting out. Engine. White is still better there. Rebecca's gonna defend in that position. Uh-oh. Rook d4 happened. First rook g4, attracting g6. Okay, that's actually even better, weakening the king a bit more. And now going for this. Megan is in a tough spot. Let's see if she's able to save this game. Oh my goodness, what happened here? Well, black was dominating, but looks like he dominated even more with a brilliant in-between move, and he won. Very nice finish by black there. This was a tough loss for white because he just blundered a pawn in one move. Rook endgame. Okay, the B and D pawns have been traded, so very likely this game should end in a draw. And then Ted is on his way to improvement. Alright guys, so I'm gonna take one more break. We're gonna take one more break. And then come back strong for the finish of this round 4 of the Invitationals. What a round. It started slow, lots of balanced positions, but listen, we're in it to find all those special moments. That's why it's nice, I think, to have a commentator for some of these tournaments, because you get the chance to catch them. And I personally enjoy not having the engine, but that bar is killing me, so seeing that bar there sometimes is certainly stressing me out, but stressing me out in a good way, because I get the chance to find new positions, new ideas, and I realize when I make a mistake, so at least you know that I'm talking something decent. So hopefully you guys enjoy it. I will let you with a BRB board page where you get the chance to kind of keep up with all of the remaining games, at least some of them. I guess I'll let you with more here. We will see a few more of the important ones, I guess. I'm not sure which ones you guys want, but let's leave you with these. I'll be back shortly. Moments of round 4 of the Invitationals. What did I miss? Antipov's at 2600 again. That is good to hear. I guess just that Com must have fixed his rating or something. But anyway, so what have we gotten here? So if we look back at this game, I missed quite a few moments here. They were important. Black is trying to advance the B pawn, but will he be able to do so? So this is kind of tricky. The idea was if you took, I think, rook c1 and trying to... not rook c1. I guess maybe... Oh, I guess we just take. Yeah. But I thought this would work too, but I guess probably not. Because it's not actually a mate. He will go king g3, and yeah, we have to take the bishop. I mean, what a terrible thing. I'm just kidding. Obviously, we'll take the bishop. So bishop d7, b4. But the thing is now, I still believe white needs to hold on to the rook there so that this doesn't happen. If you go knight e2, which is what happened, I have the feeling, okay, we have a threat. So we always have to look when there's knights on the board. When there are knights on the board, better said. We need to be mindful about check something. Always. But now I feel that if black brings the king to f4, then definitely getting a rook on the first rank is gonna bring black the win. So white has to be super cautious. But International Master Stuart Rachels will keep pushing. I mean, if he wins, he's going to play against Grandmaster Alexander Fishbein, I think, in the next round. And he does want to. Oh my god! Oh my god! Wait, I can't believe I missed this. Oh, how did it happen? Oh, Robbie must be so happy. We're talking about this crazy line here, if you guys remember that knight b3 in this case wasn't working because after takes, there was this brilliant only move for black here that saves the game, and that move was queen f4. And then when the rook goes to e8, king g7, there's nothing actually, and black would have some perpetual. But going from that to actually winning is just crazy. So white made a mistake. Played g6, giving away all of his advantage. I mean, it's not easy to find the best move here because the idea is with rook takes e3 and rook takes e1. Of course, you have to be mindful about that. And maybe this may allow though. Bishop e2 drops the knight. Knight g2 allows the capture. What about f6? Still probably allows rook takes e3. So we need to do something about that. Maybe rook e1. I mean, it doesn't look nice, but we need to defend first. Maybe try to get in the king closer to the center. White's king is weak. That's why it's kind of hard to come up with the moves. You have to make sure you keep everything safe. So wow, king h8. Obviously, if king takes, would have been a blunder because queen takes h5, rook comes in, and black is getting mated. So king h8, bishop takes e3, and white blundered. Oh my goodness. White blunder with rook f3. But what is the move to be played here? Maybe like, because rook e1, there's bishop takes d5, I think. This is not quite fun. So maybe f6, but then still queen e4 is an issue here. That's actually what we're attempting to do. Queen f3 also allows a trade, and bishop takes d5. Maybe queen a1 check. And then if you take, now we protect our threatening there, and maybe we'll have perpetual. But probably white just lost the thread of the game and played rook f3, thinking there's nothing, but after the brilliant queen e4, it's game over, and Robbie turns the game around. This is unbelievably amazing. Great job to him. King g1 takes, and he seals the deal. So beautiful. Wow. I really love this finish. You gotta fight till the end, guys. Never give up. No matter what, don't give up, and you never know. Wow, this is brilliant comeback by FIDE Master Robbie Adamson. And we've seen that game. Okay, another draw here. So white ended up not capturing in d4. There was never really a real chance for white to do that. Okay, another draw. White's still trying to find some improvements here, but the bishop pair seems relatively powerful to me. But what about this pawn push? How powerful is that? Seems relatively powerful too. This is a game to come back to. That game ended in a draw. I don't think white was lost in this game. So white panicked that he can't go, of course, here because of mate. Or, well, not mate, but he loses. Maybe eventually mate. Maybe this and then mate. But doesn't he have perpetual? I think this probably would have saved white, because I think 5 pawns should be enough to hold on against 2 rooks. Against 1 rook. Wait, rook and 5 pawns versus 2 rooks. But after f5, the deal was sealed. Maybe black should have played rook g1 in order to be able to take and grab the pawn after king f8, maybe. White had to just, no, because checking the king e7. Check. No, black should be able to win this because there will be a mate. Maybe check. And this may be a draw again. White should have a drawing mechanism. No, this loses. h6, I think, also loses after this. Oh, we come back and you have no way to grab the pawn. So if you go back, and these pawns are powerful enough because they're threatening h7 or f8, so black probably has to take some kind of draw. Just draw. What a way to save the game. What a way. But King F8 was played and this allowed each pawn to push. So Rook F7 check had to be played. Yeah, but now those two pawns are not powerful enough. And Rook D1 is a threat, and wow. This was certainly one of those endgames that, again, without time, is very hard to come up with the best way to save the situation, I think. Like, it seems that you should be able to save it, but you really need to have sufficient time to calculate. White had some, but it might not have been enough. Oh wow, so it looks like Omiya offered the draw in the right moment because she is worse than her opponent. Decided to take it despite the fact that she's much better with a terrible bishop in b7 for black. This game ended in a draw. Oh. Rebecca was struggling for quite a bit of the game. Oh my god, did white miss rook d5, rook? No, that's not the way. Is it rook d4, rook d4, rook b4? Okay, that's probably better. Rook d5 probably by one tempo might be a draw. And might be a draw, but if you go here, the black king is cut off, and there's no entrance. There's no time to do this because of this. And if you go king g5 first, oh, I just played g3. I'm silly. I just played g3. This should be winning. And white's king is close enough to win the game. So after king a6, white did play the g3 move, but it didn't help. Wow, right on time. Made it right on time to draw the game. Very nicely saved by Rebecca. I know she was doing much worse in this game, so... What? Megan was able to win this? How? I guess her opponent did not take here for whatever reason. Seems like a freebie. Oh, beautiful tactic. Beautiful tactic missed by white. Black to move and win. First check, now takes, and now she's up in exchange, and she went on to convert this. Very nice. Nice save by Megan, so she's back and with her chances to win the event. Black was able to win this. It looks like white just blundered a pawn in e4. And now everything falls. And that sealed the deal. Knight h3 coming in next. So white was pressing in this game, but it looks like wow. This is gorgeous. Knight takes h6. Rook comes in, and that king just marches out. And now for the brilliant bishop f5. And no, we're not done. Bishop h5. King takes, queen g4 mate. This is a gorgeous finish by Kyle. Nicely done, Kyle. We've seen this finish earlier. So, what? No, this was the draw that we talked about. Of course, Ted won. Ted was able to outplay. So how many games do we have remaining? Did everything finish? We only have one game remaining. I just want to see how Ted won this one. Very nicely done. Outplayed his opponent the way we expected. Alright, so let's stick to this game. It seems that it's headed for the... Ooh, extra knight. Extra knight for black. There must have been some blunder as we were catching up with some of the other games. Check. Everything's looking according to plan. Oh. White may have thought that he's gonna get two knights. He's gonna get to play against two knights and he will be able to draw. So he probably rushed sacking the knight for the pawn in c3. Probably this was... or maybe not that, maybe... That loses. Because knight takes and c2, that's the threat. Went on knight a3. Let's not give him the chance. He goes here. Maybe now we can take, because if he takes, and goes for the knight, we should have sufficient time to draw this. After check, we take. But instead, white felt they had to do this right away, but it didn't really work. Because black remained with the g-pawn and white was never able to actually... Oh, and now there's no h4. White is not ready to play h4 in time. Look at that, knight g6, very good move. Stopping h4, and now black will simply push white's king back, win the e-pawn, and then the other two. This was a very intense round, I gotta admit. I mean, I did not predict any of these things were gonna happen. I mean, we had events turn, like, results turned around, draws ending in wins, losses ending in wins. That was definitely unexpected. I will certainly be doing a recap as I come back later tonight at 8 p.m. Eastern Time for commentary of round 5 of the Invitationals. Let's take a look at the standings as we're waiting for this game to finish, just to kind of give you a brief overview as to what happened and what we can expect. So in the Irwin Tournament of Champions, Grandmaster Alexander Fishbein is the sole leader with 4 out of 4. Timothy Taylor has lost. Robbie has won. International Master Stewart Rachel's is on his way to win. So one of those two players will be facing Grandmaster Fishbein in the next round. It's definitely going to be a tough game to follow. Talking about the Denker, we've had a draw there with the top players, and I don't know exactly what to expect for that tournament. That seems to be the most like tough one to keep up with, because we also had a draw between these two players. So lots of draws. We'll have to wait and see who will have the chance to kind of secure their position into the top after the next round. In the Barber, so Marcus lost. So Kyle is the player with 3.5, and quite a few of the other players have caught up with 3.5 and are now in first position. So that's gonna be an intense round. The top players, actually all of them drew, so now we have 5 players with 3.5. That's gonna be also a tournament to follow in the Haring. Megan saved herself from a tough situation. So did Omiya. She offered the draw in the right moment. Rebecca thought she was gonna have a worse position, but she saved it as well. So that's gonna be intense. As for the Rockefeller, we'll certainly be seeing Ted Wang on the first board playing against. Actually, we don't know some of the other results because not all of the games are broadcasted live. What a game! I mean, what a round! I don't even know what to say. It looks like International Master Stuart Rachels has won his game, so he's going to be facing Grandmaster Alexander Fishbein. That's gonna be a game to look forward to. I cannot wait. I'll definitely be bringing you the recap as I come back live later tonight at 8 p.m. Eastern Time. Don't miss the opportunity to join me at the time, and don't forget, if you happen to be in Wisconsin, 7 p.m. is your next round. Don't misunderstand me. I'm going with the Eastern Time. If you happen to be in Wisconsin, don't miss the opportunity to check out the schedule. Oops. Which I've posted below. You can actually check out every single tournament that takes place, at what time, all the side events that are happening. And if you have a bit more time in your hand, you definitely may want to just walk around the city. I hear it's a beautiful city. They're known for their mustard museum and cheese. There's also you can also save, I think, 15% off at this Mediterranean restaurant, Fresca, if you happen to be there. All chess players get the chance to do that. That's a pretty cool thing. I mean, we don't get much bonuses as chess players, so we need to take advantage of all opportunities. But next thing you can encounter is basically actually at 3 p.m. the 5-day schedule has started with round 1, so you'll be able to catch up with some of the games there. They will be playing round 2 in the same time as round 5 of the 7-day schedule and the invitationals. And Thursday, that will be tomorrow, just for those of you who might not join us, there will be some other events aside from the tournament. There's gonna be Chess Journalists of America meeting and probably giving away of the prizes, executive board meetings, committee meetings, nominating committee, a lot of committee meetings. And if you happen to be on site, don't miss the opportunity to check out this the schedule and stay on top of where those meetings are taking place. See if you can make your voice heard. There's something you want to know from any of the committees that are part of US Chess. They're striving to find ways to improve our game and help us move forward in the right direction. Don't hesitate to let your voices be heard, especially for those meetings that are open to the public. So if you happen to be there, I posted the schedule, and I certainly hope you'll check it out. But I'm signing off right now. I certainly hope I'll be seeing you at 8 p.m. with a recap of this round 4 and getting ready with a lot of energy for the 5th